Hi, I'm Millie Murillo.
I'm Ashley Torrent.
And I'm Patsy Kenny.
Welcome to the Blue Butterfly Effect podcast, a gathering place for real conversations and quiet revolutions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Blue Butterfly Effect podcast. I'm here with two of my favorite humans, Patsy and Millie, and we're so excited to be here together again. And today we're going to be talking about a topic about 5 ways to honor the season you're in. And I wasn't present for the conversation. I was traveling. I wasn't present for the conversation where this topic was discussed, but when I got the notes on it, I was really excited. And so I don't even know what sparked this conversation that we're about to have, but I'm really curious. And I thought we would just leave it for this episode for you to tell me.
Great.
Yeah. I think that this is such an important conversation to have because a lot of times because of the world that we live in, we think that we should be experiencing anything other than what we're experiencing at that moment in time. Right. And so it creates this tug of war back and forth, this almost unbearable paradox within ourselves that it's like, I should be doing something else. I should be feeling something else. I should be saying, experiencing, living something else. And the fact of the matter is that we are always experiencing what we need to experience at that moment in time. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it came up because every time that we get around the summertime here, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, so like Gemini, Cancer, Leo seasons. Those seasons, particularly Cancer season, is directly opposite of my Capricorn season. So my sun sign, the way that I shine the brightest, right? And relative to where the sun is in the sky, according to the season, they're directly opposite of one another. So the transiting sun sign is the farthest away from my own light. So I noticed, and this has been something that I've had to work through, like in therapy and just my own work. I have noticed that the summers are actually quite slow for me when it comes to work and productivity, just very naturally. And not only externally, but internally, it just feels different. Like it's not that I don't feel as creative, it's just very naturally I feel this is a season of brainstorming or gestation, or it's just a season to enjoy your life. How about that? Right? So until I understood that, I realized, oh, this is why the summers feel like so much more for me and my personal time. Like the sun in the zodiac is such a masculine energy that has so much to do with productivity and career, for instance, like those archetypes or rules those themes in our lives. And it's when it's the farthest away from your own sun sign, you might feel that. At least that's the season that I'm in. I think it happens that way in some way, shape, or form for everyone. But that's what sparked it for me. How do I, in comparison to previous years, accept that I'm in a season where it's okay? It's okay. There's like a sense of safety. Oh, things are slower. That's okay. I'm being prepared for the next season, right? And having observed that enough over the last 5 years for myself, I have I'm holding it differently. I'm noticing.
Yeah, I like that. It's really good. When we connected to brainstorm what we'd like to talk about today, Millie was naming, like, I feel like every time of year we get to this place on the calendar, my sense of, the like sort of energy and pace of, oh, this would be great to talk about. All the ideas, like they're not really flowing like they were in the fall. She was just kind of naming her energetic shift as we shifted, as the calendar shifted, and how it tends to feel slower and, more sort of less tangible, more airy, I guess. Is that a good way to put it, Millie? Mm-hmm. And I started thinking about the season I feel like I'm in, and the conversations I've been having with other people in my life about the particular seasons they're in. So, not necessarily calendar related, but more like I have a very dear friend who is in the early stages of motherhood, right? And she has one that's kind of graduating up into a school age, and the other that just turned one, and how what is being asked of her right now is very different than any other time she's lived thus far, and how she was having a recent conversation around like just accepting the season that she's in, and like celebrating it and saying like, I recognize that I'm gonna have to say no to some things because of this, or I'm now kind of exploring what does it look like to go back into the workforce. How do I want to be showing up at that for that particular part of my life, given the season I'm in, with this other role that I have that I'm enjoying so thoroughly. And so that sort of theme of seasons started to connect the dots, and we thought, oh, that could be really, really good to explore and dig deeper into. So yeah.
Well, when I was looking at the notes, I just was thinking of how often when I'm working with people, there's so much resistance about being in the season they're in, and how I'm sitting on the other side going, just hold on tight. If you can spend this time grieving, there will be so much more joy. But we want to, like, if we've gone through a big process, like maybe a relationship change, a move, new job, and anything, having a child, we want to rush on to the next.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, I've done this. Now I should be back, I should be happy. I should be excited. I should have more energy. I should have this. I should have that. And it's like, there's really time to integrate, but also process whatever you've been through. And I've seen a lot of times when people, like, especially like after divorce, that's a huge process that like takes a lot of energy and a toll on the body to go through that. And there's a lot of resistance to the grief that comes after, because there's this feeling of like, well, that's done. I worked so hard to get to the other side of this. I want to experience the next stage of my life. Yeah. And the body's like, and the heart's like, no, we need time to grieve. We need time to process this. And so what I notice is, like, I think what y'all said at the beginning is we have this maybe cultural society. We're taught that we should move on to the next rather than honoring this period.
Totally.
Which our body needs, which we need to make space for whatever's next. Right? Yeah. And I just hope that anyone listening will get the importance of this time. Whatever season you're in, it is there for you, and it will change.
It'll change. Yeah.
Right.
That's the thing we forget, is that it's constantly changing. Right. And so if we can name the season we're in, like when we name it, there's space to accept it and then ground into presence with it, knowing that this too will pass. Right. And there will be another phase or another way to show up. But giving it that space for integration, as you named, Ash, I think that's so important to call out, because I'm finding too, as I was thinking more about this topic, really kind of going through the core people in my life and the different seasons that they're in. And my grandmother is in her, let's say, in Hollywood speak, it's like the last act, right? She's going to turn 90 this summer. And it's, I noticed the change in her. And also there's grief that comes up in that too, when you're aging and your body's not working as well as it used to. And the friends you held, aren't with us in the physical plane anymore. And there's like all of these changes. But then no matter what phase or season we're in, when we have that element of resistance, it makes that phase like more challenging to be present with, like there's a peace that comes with naming and accepting where we're at, and like almost permission granting to be like, okay, I keep telling her, I'm like, you're in your queen era now. Like you get to point, you get to decide what you want done around here, and you get to direct, like put on your director's hat, and there's so much resistance to that because she always used to do everything on her own by herself. You know what I mean? And she loved it. Like she had that creative freedom and those sorts of things, and she could do what she wanted when she wanted. And now she sort of has to wait for those around her to show up and, fix the sink, hang hang the picture, whatever it is, haul the thing away. But we laugh about it, but it's like, I think there's so much peace that can come with naming it, choosing to be in the acceptance of it, and honoring it for what it is.
I think people don't understand how much power acceptance brings. Like, it brings you into the present moment. And so it's then that you can go, so how do I want to live with this? How do I want to be in this? When you're in resistance, you have no choice because you're constantly avoiding what's right in front of you, that present moment. And I feel like when I moved, we just moved to Costa Rica, and I spent the past 4 months like integrating and really enjoying being there. But people keep saying, have you been here? Have you been there? Have you traveled? Have you seen the volcanoes? Have you seen the waterfalls? And my ego will pop up and go, you haven't done anything really. And then my heart is like, I just need to be for a minute. I just want to enjoy the ocean. I want to enjoy the view. I'm like really in a delighting phase, but the ego is really sneaky, and it comes into like, you should be. And then there's a form of resistance of resting and delighting and just being. And it's like, so when I come into a phase of acceptance of this is where I am, how do I want to be in this more intentionally and consciously, have more energy, and then things just feel softer.
Yeah.
Softer.
Mm-hmm.
I really love what you said, Patsy, about permission granting.
Mm-hmm.
I think so much of accepting is that. There, again, we live in a very rigid society where expectations are everywhere, whether we realize it or not, right? And there is something, and I see it in clients' faces when we talk about like, can you give yourself the permission to be where you are, be new at this, not feel your best, or whatever it is. And there's something that happens where it's like, oh yeah, I'm the only one who gets to give myself permission for that, right? I think another important thing about honoring the season you're in is that a lot of times, if you are transitioning into a new season, the old way of doing things is a lot of times not going to work. Or your old way of like navigating life, managing life, showing up for life is not going to work. And so there's this process of like a rebirth or a relearning in some way that is very inconvenient to our human lives, right? It's so annoying and frustrating and inconvenient. And that is more of the reason why just absolute acceptance is necessary, because then you allow the you that is emerging at that moment in time in that season to come, to emerge, to take the lead, right? And there's the permission we need to give ourselves at any season to just be, to move as quickly or to move as slowly as we need to, is, I think, like baseline. Like, we're the only ones who get to give ourselves permission to be where we know in our bodies we need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the, I love how you drilled down into that, because once we have that recognition, it's also reminding ourselves that the pace, like the season's setting the pace, right? So it's likely going to be very different than the season we're coming out of. I do kind of love that it tends to flow, like it ebbs and flows, right? Like if you're coming out of a season of deep work or excavation, it's cleared the way for action, right? I kind of feel like I'm in that space right now where came out of this long haul. I actually thought the season would never end. Like I was like, this is just it forevermore. Like the depths of excavation. And now I'm like, okay, things are moving and grooving again. Like I feel like I have the space, the time, the energy to say yes to the ideas that are now emerging. If I hadn't taken the time, right? I mean, and there was resistance throughout that process for sure. But eventually, as I continued to surrender and surrender again, it's like, okay, and accept that that's where I'm at. Like it created that space for the next pace to emerge. And I had the energy to say yes to it. And so, yeah, when we can remind ourselves time and time and time again, that it's inevitably going to change and go with the pace that's in front of us. Also, in this season, there's things that I am more focused on than I was before because there's clarity and there's energy for them. And I have this goal that I am, excited to meet with my energy and action. And so I'm also saying no to things that maybe I still would like to say yes to, but I'm like reprioritizing based on the energy and focus that I have. And reminding myself, like, it's okay to say no to that right now. There will be another time to revisit that kind of an invitation, right? And not getting caught up in the potential disappointment of not being able to do all the things all at once.
Yeah. It requires a lot of trust to let the season set the pace. A lot of trust that it won't last forever. And I feel like our resistance makes the seasons take longer. It's just like I just feel like it's like we can either drag ourselves through it or we can just be on the ride and let it go. But it's really beautiful. If we just, I think once we surrender, and so letting the season take place requires a lot of surrender, trusting that there's something bigger at play that my ego doesn't understand, that the outside world doesn't understand. The outside world does not set the pace for this. It's very personal, very intimate between your heart and soul. Sure. And then once I surrender, it's like, there's a part of me that's just like, oh my God, why haven't I been doing this? It's like I can breathe again. It's just so and then you can kind of enjoy it.
Right.
Just but there's just this lack of trust that this will never end. And it's interesting. We have so little faith in life and the rhythm of life often.
And it really does know what the heck it's doing. Way more than our egoic minds do.
Totally. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think what comes up for me is it makes me think about my sister, and she's a relatively new mom. My nephew's only a year and a half old, right? And so, and I've worked with new moms quite a bit, and what I notice is this growing into becoming the mother that they are meant to be versus the mother that they thought they had to be according to, again, society and certain rules. And so I noticed my sister just be she was so exhausted, right? Because for all of us, it can get to a point where it's like, I can't do this anymore in this way. Mm-hmm. I keep feeling like I'm fighting life, right? And so in letting the season that she's in set the pace, it looks like the dishes aren't getting done today, right? The dishes aren't getting done today. Mm-hmm. I'm going to shower till 1 a.m., mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Laundry is not done. She let the season set the pace because so much of her is drawn somewhere else. And as soon as, and I know exactly where she felt the pressure, where that came from but the house has to be spotless and we have to I have to do everything, right? And in saying, I can't, I just physically can't, mm-hmm. and letting the season set the pace, all of a sudden, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's different. Mm-hmm. She's not adding stress to an already
super stressful situation,
super stressful transformational mm-hmm. situation that is bringing up other things in her role in the world, her, what is her role as a woman and who is she, all of these other things, right? That when you really think about it, it's fuck laundry. I'm having an existential crisis, right?
Yes. I love that motherhood's come up because I feel like this is a place where as a mother, you're not you're expected to move very quickly out of that season. And I believe this is right, but it takes a woman's body 3 years to recover from being pregnant and giving birth. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about the hormonal adjustments. We kind of give like a cursory nod to it and maybe, but what a woman goes through to carry that child and then to give birth and then to find a new identity as a mother and then to have this being so dependent on them and then to put everything on pause to welcome this child. And yeah, it's a choice, like a lot of us are choosing this. But I don't think we're set up for like
It's
really
really hard
encouragement
to honor it.
to nurture it, to like, okay, my body, like
Yeah.
getting my body back in whatever condition it is, please give me a break. Like, it's a lot. So I love that this has come up because I think that is a time where I feel like we could really support women and just like, this is the season you'll get back to your dreams. You'll get back to your work, if that's it, your creativity. But this is a creative act.
Heck
Like,
yeah.
and even that is like, well, you had a child, so on to the next. It's like, wait a second.
Yeah.
The world is disoriented. And then the expectations from family, the outside world, culture about what you should look like, what you should be, how you should parent. It's like, oh my God, it's exhausting. The advice you get, it's like, all right. I mean,
Kind of what you're asking for, and you try to serve your own too. It's wild, and you want to do right by the child you're raising, of course.
Yeah, like that's what you're honoring, is that being and your body and the whole thing. It's wild.
Yeah. I feel like through her experience, I realize how much this world is not very kind to moms.
Mm-hmm.
It is unreal.
Mm-hmm. It really
I
is.
think we're lazy. We're just sitting at home, like eating and watching TV and just like, I'm like, no.
Right.
That job never ends.
It never ends.
Right.
Yeah. I know Millie and I proudly wear the auntie title, but we get to go home, or, we get to bring the fun for an afternoon or a day or an overnight and provide a little relief, but it's not right. Like, we go away and that job continues. Even when we're on duty, that job's continuing. You know what I mean? I would imagine, Ash, you can speak to this, but like, you're never not thinking about the boys.
A little worrying or caring. But my favorite pause, and I love that y'all have so much compassion for this. And I have so much respect for y'all's decisions not to have children. But my favorite was you were babysitting the other day for like a whole day and you sent me a picture of that, because I said, that takes a whole different kind of energy, doesn't it? And you sent me a picture and your hair was like, and I was like, good for you.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and it's like just a cyclone around me. Right. And it's like, God bless y'all who are choosing to do this and make this your 24/7. I mean, it's part of the role. And it's fascinating. Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a season. Yeah.
It's a season.
But I think, sorry, I was
go ahead
over you, Millie, but I was just to kind of add or segue from what you were saying. It's like the expectations that we hold, right, need to change too in terms of the season. Because like you were mentioning with your sister, like she was still holding these high expectations to maintain a spotless house. And now she's in this new space. And it's like, well, that's really not realistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And being just so mindful. Every new mom that I have spoken to in the last couple of years, they get so enraged, and I think rightfully so, by, for instance, like these Instagram accounts where you have moms where their house is spotless and their children are spotless, and it recalibrating the expectations to honor our human experience is so important in whatever season we're in, because we are again surrounded by this idea of perfection that does not exist. It does not exist. I think like aging, getting older is also something else, right?
Totally.
Like, especially for women, right? It's like, I notice, the like the heaviness and the worry that we could carry, or, and it's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. We're getting older. And it's like, who are we trying to impress here? Who are we trying to impress here?
Yeah.
It's brutal, but I think this topic about expectations in this is where intuition is so important, because instead of looking at our egoic expectations or the world's expectations, it's such a beautiful time to go to like come from the soul and like, how do I want to move through this? Like intuitively, like back to being a mother, I had to let go of everything the outside world expected of me and really had to decide, how do I want to move through my family? And that's one of the reasons I homeschool. I was like, I'm not getting my children up at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning. That's not going to work for my family. I mean, that's not the only reason, but these are some of those rhythms. What intuitively works for my children? What intuitively works for our family? And then with aging, I just turned 51, and I'm in this process of like, really checking in how do I want to move through this? And like physical appearance is such a big thing. Do I want to let my hair go gray? Am I ready to let my hair go gray? One of my hairdressers says, you never go gray. I'm sitting there going, I have to decide if I ever want to go gray. I'm like, but that's the influence. You never go gray. Her grandmother has dyed black hair and her grandmother's like 95.
Right.
Yeah. She's like, you don't. And I'm like, oh. And then, I'm sitting here like, how do I want to move through this phase?
Yeah.
But I can't do it based on the expectations of what the world wants.
No.
If you're going through a phase of like if you're going through a grieving, I had someone talking about, women are so wired for perfection. And she was taught that if you've put on a few pounds, like her mom didn't leave the house. Like if you weren't physically a certain way, you don't leave the house. And I just thought, wow, like those expectations of the outside world are so constrictive and restrictive, and they just keep us so small. And we lose our connection to our soul, because our soul is like, I don't care if you feel good, if you're comfortable, so what are your expectations of this season? And are they coming from your ego or your soul? It's really important. And your body, your sweet bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are such good examples, Ash. I love that.
I think I'm just kind of letting that one land.
Yeah.
that kind of like perfectionistic.
No, yeah. All the points that you made, it's just, it's such a weird thing to think about, of like this invisible veil or energy
Like
that that is just there, dictating so much of our decision and so much of how we see ourselves and define ourselves. And like, it's like crazy to think about. Not that we're crazy, but it's like, whoa, it's mind-blowing to think about. Like if we look in the mirror, right, and our bodies look different, if there was no conditioning, it would just be you looking at a body in a mirror.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The conditioning
defines
the way that you look at that body in the mirror.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts to think about.
And how people are interacting with it. That's wild too, right? So not just from physical appearance, but say you're moving into a new transition where, like work is changing, or you're in the in-between. God forbid we're in an in-between, right? Where one way we're showing up in contribution in our job is changing, or we've outgrown it, or we're, in a position to take a pause. And the way people are interacting with us is always like driven by those questions of like, well, how's business these days? Or, you know what I mean? Or like if people have known you to be one way for a certain period of time, then they show up with that expectation that you are still that way, or you look that way, or even the commentary we make on other people's bodies. Like you run into somebody who's, you know what I mean? Like dyed their hair or gained weight or lost weight, or it's like, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And that's the thing that's commented on.
True.
Or if you are in a vessel that is like celebrated by the culture that is named beautiful, or whatever the label is, like it's very interesting how those comments are so quick to be made to others and not really taking into consideration like the whole person, the circumstances, the season they're in, whatever.
Why is it our business?
Exactly.
When I was 20, I was dating this guy. I went to the makeup counter with his mom, and she was shopping for lipstick. And I said, I don't really wear lipstick. And she goes, someday you're going to need to.
Wow.
You're going to need to leave the house with lipstick on.
Wow.
But it's interesting. So, but coming back to, we have all these people, and based on their own expectations of themselves or fear or their own conditioning, showing up and like wanting to influence. Like, she was afraid. I would never grow up to be a woman who wore lipstick when she left the house. Like, maybe if her son, lived with me or we grew up together, that would be like, so it's fascinating.
Because it also says something about her, right? It's like,
yeah. So isn't that wild? I mean, I know I'm kind of going off topic, but it's the cultural stuff that's like constantly chirping in your ear.
Yeah.
Like,
we really have to find our voice in the middle of all that noise.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that just rhymed. I didn't realize that. But
again? Wait, say it again.
I said we really have to find our voice in the middle of all that noise. That's how we recalibrate our expectations, right? And so sometimes in session, right, with clients, I bring them back to their world. Like, they're talking about a lot of things. I'm like, well, that's a lot of voices that don't sound like yours. What does your day look like? Like, from the moment that you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, what does your day look like, feel like, interactions with your, partner, children? Like, what does that look like? And what do you want that to feel like? Because there is no more immediate reality check than our day-to-day.
Yeah.
Right? That's a good point. Yeah.
Such a good point.
Mm-hmm. There's no more immediate reality check than our day-to-day. And it's like, oh, of course, no, I'm in my home. Like, I'm doing this. I'm the one tending to it. I'm the one tending to my children or whatever it is. And when I'm in that, those voices are just that. They're just voices. And these people aren't here anyway. Right? And I think so if there is a way to kind of recalibrate your expectations, just bring yourself really not just to the present moment in like a meditative Zen kind of way. It's like, no, what does my day-to-day look like?
Yeah.
How do I feel today?
Yeah.
Right? Do I feel grateful and joyous? Or do I just want to tell everybody to go F themselves? Like that.
It's so illuminating when you ask that simple question. And then it also gives you information about like, not only how do I feel right now in this moment, but how do I want to feel? Like back to what you had said, Ash, it's like we're going to take, what hand are we playing right now? Like what's in our stack of cards right this minute, knowing that, new cards will come, but it's like, okay, and how do I want to show up for that? How do I want to move through that? How do I want to play this hand that I'm currently dealt? And so, okay, that go F yourself. If that's your answer, it's like, oh, some things have to change. Like I have to say no to that thing or choose to leave the dishes on the counter or outsource, right? Some sort of tasks that I've been taking on myself because I was holding myself to some standard that I'm the only one who can do it or whatever,
I think Millie just has somebody listening who's creative might create like plaques or pillows stitched with like, do I feel like joyful and so I do feel like everyone's going or where's my voice in the noise? I can see these like,
yes,
they have, like,
they're shareable for sure.
Like cocktail napkins.
Right. Merch ideas, ladies.
Oh, here it comes. See? Just flowing right in.
That's it.
One side of the t-shirt has the I feel joyful, the other is everyone needs to go F off.
Yeah. With like middle fingers going up in the back.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's good.
So I think that another way to honor the season you're in is to somehow anchor into the now by recognizing how the now is sacred, right? So if you have the spaciousness to build some kind of ritual around this chapter, and that can be, it doesn't have to be a thing. Like, it doesn't have to be a thing. And if you have the spaciousness for it to be a thing, make it a thing, right? So sometimes maybe the ritual is just having your coffee in the morning, right? Maybe you,
Solitude.
right, exactly. So back to my sister, right? She's like, it isn't until Danny goes to bed that then I can just have me time. So her ritual is when he goes to bed, I watch an episode of my favorite show. Like, that's her ritual, right? And that is late at night when the rest of the world is asleep. And then she gets to do whatever she needs to do, right? For other people, it gets to be for an hour or two on Saturdays, I go and do my own thing and then I come back home, right? Like, for others, it can be like every single day I go for an hour walk or a 2 hour walk. How can you create some kind of consistency that connects you to the magic of this moment? Because there is always something there in every season trying to teach us, trying to come through, trying to show us something. And it is in those moments that we get to decompress and allow for something to come in. There's enough softness where we get to breathe. Maybe it's just breathing, right?
Yeah.
And the ritual can be based, on, it can be connected to whatever the theme of that season is. I was thinking for people who are going through a season of grief or healing, it's like maybe napping, a ritual of a nap every day of, or like, I love a soft, cozy blanket, or just like reading a book and soft, cozy blanket. I feel like I'm in a delight and creativity season. So a ritual of creativity, of journaling, being in nature, delighting, like showing up in those ways that honor that season, and if you're in a ritual of action, making sure like you're doing like, okay, what active steps do I want to take towards the thing I'm in the process of manifesting? That can be, it can be anything that's meaningful for you.
Definitely. When I was in my excavation season, going through my divorce, and my dad had, he was ailing. My ritual was tears in the tub with takeout. Like, I had almost nightly baths. I literally heated up leftovers, brought it. I know it sounds crazy, but I brought it into the tub, ate, cried, and bathed. And that was it.
I love that. But that's what we're talking about. It doesn't, like, that doesn't seem weird at all. It seems so beautiful. Like, your body's cared for, you're nourishing it, and you're getting your nervous system soothed, and you're grieving, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah. When I was deep in my Pluto transiting over my sun, one of the things that I would do mostly on Sundays was like get in the tub and just listen to really like sad, dark music in Spanish mostly.
Oh, I love that.
Cry and just be in that. And that just felt so good, right?
Yeah.
There is just something about, like honoring the theme of the season with, and letting the ritual represent that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. Like, I think another thing that is worth mentioning that I think more and more women are really waking up to, and great for them, is a softer life.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Right? A softer life that is not, again, dictated or based on chasing and productivity and your title and the amount of money that you make. Like, again, not that any of that is unimportant, but I feel, and I have witnessed in my own experience and in some of the women that I work with, is like the reclaiming, or again, giving yourself the permission to have a soft life and be like, oh, this is safe. Okay. I'm not going to completely lose everything and end up on the street. Okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because those, depending on your life experience, like those are the actual thoughts that come to mind. Right. So I personally, I can say I'm definitely living a soft life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice my body contracting a little bit as I say that. Like, am I allowed to say that?
Mm-hmm.
Am I allowed to have that? Right. And then like the wiser part of me that's been doing the work. Yes, absolutely.
Of course.
Yes, absolutely. It's okay.
What's beautiful about that too, Millie, is that in saying that, in claiming that, and also demonstrating it, you're living it, you're granting not only yourself permission, but you're granting others permission just by simply embracing that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that too, I feel like we forget that when we claim something for ourselves, like the ripples that actually creates for others, as just by living, right? Because I know for me, like seeing others who have created schedules they love, and holding to that. Like I have a friend back in Maine who, she's very boundaried about her time in a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that it might take months before we're in physical presence, not only because of proximity at the moment, but just because based on schedules. Like I've been up there and it just hasn't lined up for us to get together. I know when we finally do, it's going to be even more special, because that's like that presence will be amplified. We'll both be more well rested, right? She has like created that softness in her everyday life so that she can be like an even better version of herself in the connection she's choosing to make as that time allows. And I'm so inspired by that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, soft life. I mean, I think that is what has allowed me to heal from so much trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, not too long ago, I was thinking about how I used to have nightmares for most of my life. And those nightmares went well into like my 30s, right? I'm 38. It has been perhaps maybe in the last 4 years that I don't wake up startled in the middle of the night having nightmares that I don't know what. I know exactly where that came from.
Yeah.
I know exactly where that came from, right? And it was throughout my life. And it was until I stopped doing so many things and decided to live my life in a very slow way, that, oh, okay, my body said, oh, this gets to feel safe.
Yeah.
Right? I always comment that my life is pretty boring. Like if someone were to look at my life, it's very boring. But this is the happiest I've ever been, the safest I've ever felt. Not for the reasons that I used to think would make me happy and safe, but because there's enough softness and spaciousness to say, oh, I don't have to be afraid that someone's going to break into our house, or that there's violence that's going to break out in the middle of the night, or that, a crazy alcoholic man is going to lose his temper.
Yeah.
Right? So I say that because I think that when so many women, especially in the time that we're living in, are reclaiming their softness, is not for nothing. It's not for nothing. And so your friend, the healthy boundaries, I am very, very healthily, unapologetically boundaried with my life and my peace, because it has taken me a long, most of my life to live, to be here. This place in my life where I am now is a fraction of how I used to live and what my body used to feel like in this existence. So I say all of that because it's important to remember, again, when women reclaim this, especially in the world that we live in, more often than not, they're reclaiming it for some very, very significant reason, not just because they just want to just not do anything.
Isn't that awful? I mean,
Yes.
because a lot of us, I mean, doing the job I do, like trauma is an epidemic in our country. And so many of us have grown up hypervigilant. And with all these, not to mention the family dynamic that creates hypervigilance, but the outside world's expectations of perfection. And, you know, coming to Charleston, I've been living such a soft life in Costa Rica. My life is boring too, you know, like I go to the beach, that's made my day. You know, I don't need much. Go for a walk with the dogs, look at the mountains, sit outside with a cup of coffee. But coming here, I noticed my body was like, well, you have to do this and you have to go see that person. You have to connect. And I was finding like, I just can't. And finally today I was like, I can't. Like, I have to trust that people know my heart and know my intentions, but I also have to honor my body. Like being here is discombobulating. And also I can only do so much. I don't want to leave the trip having spread myself so thin. You know, so I'll just be like, well, I'll be here in a couple months and I'll touch in then. But we're not used to living like that. We're like, you have to do with, again, back to expectations. And I'm with y'all. I'm like, I look at the softness of my life and I was like, what have I been doing? What have I been rushing to this whole time? Like, it makes me sad. Why have I been rushing this whole time? For what? Right. For who? Right. Like, and I've noticed I am actually more creative and my life is richer when I'm softer and slower.
Totally. Well, there's space for that too, right? Yeah. I mean, creativity flows through us when we give it the space, the time, the attention, and it simply intention to hold that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, some of you know, but you both know, I spent pretty much a whole year kind of like on the road, living in between places. And I was constantly on the go because of the nature of what my life was at the moment. As soon as I landed in my own place, it was like the creativity was flowing through me like a geyser. Like the ideas were never ending. I was up at night because of them. Like it was wild, but it was because of that groundedness, that spaciousness, that like pace. I got to slow down. I got to be in one place for more than, you know, a week at a time, 2 weeks at best. And it's fascinating, like how supportive that is, you know?
Yeah. It really is. You get a lot, like life is just, it's sharper, it's clearer, it's richer, it's softer, it's more delightful. And it's the opposite of we're taught to get more done, work harder, move faster, less sleep, more action. And the body's like, no thanks. The life is like, no, that's not really true. Nature's such a good example. Nature moves at its own pace. And I'm just constantly marveling at like, I know it's so cliche, but the flowers aren't like, I have to bloom, you know, like you just watch the seasons and you're like, oh, I should just kind of follow that rhythm a bit. Like, that's nice.
I love that you bring nature into our theme of the seasons, you know, because that's one thing I love about being in New England is you get to really experience each one of them. And it's a reminder. It's a physical reminder of like, okay. You know, in the fall, the leaves are changing color and now they're falling to the ground. And now we're going to be in a season of sticks. And so, you know, but like that rawness of nature that, you know, it's not always in full bloom. There is that time and space for retreating and resetting, hibernating.
And there's no apology for the season nature's in. The ocean's not like, sorry, I'm a little wild today. You know, you know, it's just like, it's kind of, I mean, it's not kind of, it's beautiful. There's no apology.
I think that's such an another important thing to name, like no apology for it. Because I think that another thing that can come with like choosing to live a softer life or being able to be in the season, to be in a softer space in your life is that people can judge it as like privileged. Oh, you're privileged, right? I would love for someone to come to my face and tell me that I'm privileged. Get the fuck out of here. There's nothing hard, right? Privileged about where I am. And I think that it's so important to name that for women to be unapologetic about whatever season they're in, however they choose to navigate it, because no one is in your shoes day to day.
That's right.
Period.
That's right.
And you get to tell them if they come to you with foolishness. Like it's ridiculous.
Off.
Right?
Yeah.
Because Mother Nature isn't apologetic about the season she's in.
No.
And this world reflects, like, so much of nature reflects back to us what we are allowed to be. That's why Mother Nature feels so comforting.
Yeah. That's a
Right?
good point. There's another pillow.
Tons of pillows.
Yeah. We'll have full-blown home goods here in no time. So good.
But yeah, I think if in astrology there's anything that reminds us that we can't rush through a season, is Saturn. Saturn is the planet of time, chronos, mastery, and mastery takes time, right? No matter how much we want to rush that transit process, we can't. And at the other side of that transit, that's how I look at, particularly Saturn transits. They last anywhere from 2.5 to 3 years. It's like, okay, that's what I meant to look at. What am I going to do?
Right.
And so, again, rushing or trying to rush something, I think it is a form of resistance, and it keeps you from seeing the gift in that moment.
The gift in that moment and the wisdom that we're gonna feel on the other side of it, right? Like you really don't, like, the payoff of the wisdom. Like the gift is in the present, but the gift shows up in that wisdom after we've like been through the season. You can't. I feel like that doesn't become clear until you've made your way through. And if you can do so from a place of acceptance and surrender and presence, then the wisdom will appear. But if you're rushing it, you're resisting it, we miss out on that part too.
Yeah. And I think it's important people know that it doesn't mean nothing's happening. Like if you're in a season of like resting or grieving or healing, whatever it is, like there's still stuff happening. You're still connecting to people. You're still connecting to yourself. You're still growing. You're still evolving. Life is still happening. It just might be you have more time. Like if you're grieving, you might be crying more. You might need a more insular life, a more quiet life, but it doesn't mean you never go out. You never do anything fun. It doesn't mean joy isn't possible. It's actually when you stop resisting, the joy is more possible. You might laugh a little bit more during this time. So it's like, don't think that if you're in a season, you're just going to be like laying in your bed and like suffering the whole time. No, it's actually like, it can be really beautiful and easeful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it reminds us of the choice we really have to notice the joyous moments of life, right?
The magic in the mundane.
Right. Exactly. I have a friend, her name is MC McDonald, and she's doing 365 days of noticing tiny joys throughout your day. So she's doing that on her social media. And she is, I think I don't remember exactly what her title is, but she has a PhD in, I think, neuroscience and like focuses on trauma, right? So her series of 365 days of noticing little tiny joys, it's like that, the magic in the mundane. And what that does is that it allows you to experience again every season, knowing that, to your point, Ash, it's not all suffering all the time, right? It's a season, and it comes with everything it comes with.
Yeah. It comes with everything it comes with. And that is this full spectrum.
Yes, of life, human experience, all of it. And to embrace all of it means you're like in life. To resist it is futile. Just creates suffering.
It does. And it, life is suffering's naturally built into this whole thing. So
yeah,
we can do what we can to like not add to it, mitigate that.
Mitigate some of it.
Right.
Not add to it.
Yeah. Much more rich, much more whole, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, that feels complete. Feels full circle. I was thinking about when you named Millie the ritual aspect of building a ritual around your chapter. About this exercise that I do regularly at the start of the year, like finding a guiding word to act almost as an anchor and a compass. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have a resource that I would love to share with people to highlight that call out of ritual. But would either of you like to name any resources or offerings that you have at the moment that might further support this conversation around honoring the season you're in today?
What comes to mind, honestly, and this is because of feedback that I received from people, and that this is what they've shared, is that the weekly forecast has become a part of their like weekly routine. Whether they listen to it on Sunday or Monday, it has become a part of that routine, right? There is something about astrology putting words to our experience, or like windows of possibility, or whatever it is, that it gives something that can feel somewhat tangible if we are in a season of I have no idea, which is very possible. So I really just the weekly forecast, I think, is actually that resource. And people, again, so gracious, so kindly sharing with me that is a part of their weekly ritual. Is like it's a little surreal to me every time. I'm like, that's yeah, I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, it's a part of mine. It's something that anchors me and always feels affirming. Always. I'm like, oh my God, I love astrology so much.
Brandon is so hopeful. Yeah.
So helpful.
So helpful and hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I feel like my newsletter is about like honoring speaks to the season I'm in, but I feel like it's just about the human experience. So I think it could be helpful talking about ways we move through different seasons, feelings, experiences in a very soulful human way.
Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. Like I said, I savor it every time it lands in my inbox. And it's always permission granting too, Ash,
Thank you.
It's an invitation to connect with our inner guidance. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks all for being with us. We so appreciate your listenership. Is that the right word? Your viewership, your engagement with us on social media. We thoroughly enjoy continuing these conversations in the comments wherever you are listening. So thank you for being part of our world.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. If something stirred your soul or made you smile, share it with a friend or leave us a review. Until next time.